Hey guys, welcome back to the Live Your Best Life podcast. Today we're going to be talking about really our framework for having a proper retirement plan, including all 5 worlds, which is our trademark process, our strategic wealth method. We're going to talk about our other trademark, which is our hashtag LYBL, Living Your Best Life, really taking Social Security, maximizing Social Security, tying in the remaining income that we're going to need in retirement from our retirement assets that we've saved for producing income in retirement, and tie all 5 areas together. But we want to talk about having that income plan, having that investment plan, taking care of being tax efficient in a tax plan. Finally, the 4th plan is healthcare planning, and number 5 is going to be estate/legacy planning. So let me get started here. I like to do a lot of drawing. We're going to go on the board and walk through each one of these 5 areas and why you need to have all 5 areas working together in order to protect you and your family and the assets that you've worked so hard to save. So let's dive into today's topic of really what the proper framework or structure looks like when we talk about retirement planning. Hello everyone, I want to welcome you guys to our webinar today. I know we're going to be talking about coordinating our retirement assets as well as Social Security, getting that proper income plan in place, but really I want to talk about going back to the basics as well. So thank you for attending the webinar. Remember, we do have our live chat. If I can't answer your question today, then we'll make sure that one of us answers that back either via email, pick up the phone, giving you a call, or scheduling our next meeting to talk. So whether you're a client or a potential client, either way, we want to address your questions, make sure they're answered through either sitting down or talking in person, okay? Thanks guys for attending, but first let's go back to the basics. And the biggest issue is while you're working, not that it's an issue, but this is what we're so used to. We're so used to saving inside of our 401ks, inside our outside assets like IRAs or Roth IRAs, that when we finally get to retirement, now we change concepts from saving to now we have to spend our money. So what you have to do is take these assets that you have saved, and now we have to coordinate them the right way in order to provide the income that we're going to need for the rest of our life. So it's sometimes hard when we first get to retirement because we're so used to saving that money and not spending it. Now we have to turn that into a retirement check, and one that's going to last the rest of our life, no matter how long we live. It has to increase with inflation every year, because our expenses are, and it's got to come in like clockwork. It's got to come in every month, like your Social Security check's going to, or potentially your pension check is going to. What we want to really do is create a pension for the rest of our life. But it all focuses or comes back into play, if we're going to compare anything, to our 5-world process. So you still have to have all 5 plans in place in order to coordinate these retirement assets and do this to be successfully retired, living your best life in retirement. So I want to focus back on those 5 worlds for a second. And let me change this color so you guys could actually see it, because that didn't look so good black on black. So hold on a minute here. Here we go. So I want to start with a 5-world process. So now most of us have focused on saving inside our investments, which I think we obviously need investments to have a comfortable retirement. But really what we need to have is have an actual income plan. That's the number one concern retirees have, or people heading into retirement. About 54% of people are more concerned about outliving their money. So we have to take that concern off the table. And we're going to do so by having an actual income plan. And I would stress, if you are not one of our clients, I would ask you what your plan for income is, And if your answer is just taking money out of my investments, that's not a plan. We have Roth assets, IRA assets. We have 401k assets. We have assets sitting inside of our bank, non-qualified brokerage accounts, CDs, money markets. If we take out of the wrong order, we potentially can run out of money about 6 years sooner. That's what the statistics say. And then should we be taking out of IRA or Roth assets? How is that going to affect us tax-wise? So we really need to have an actual income plan. And that income plan starts with knowing what our expenses are. So let's just say that our expenses are $5,000 per month. But that's just our core expenses. What we have to understand is, what are our LYBL expenses? That's living your best life. That's doing everything that you guys want to accomplish, not only now, but in retirement. Maybe that is $50,000 this year out of our investments to remodel the kitchen. Maybe that is $20,000 for 2 extra vacations this year. Maybe that's $30,000 for 3 months in Florida during the winter. Maybe we're taking the grandkids on vacation and we need $10,000 or $20,000 assigned for this particular vacation with the grandkids. We need to factor whatever this living your best life is into your overall expenses. Maybe that, we'll just say it's $24,000 a year. So now we have another $2,000 a month. So we have $7,000 that we need on a monthly basis to increase with inflation and outlive both spouses. Now, where's our income coming in from? So on the income side, all of you will have Social Security, and we need to maximize our Social Security. So the average person that comes in and we have a conversation with, we could usually show you how to maximize this by tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So now if we could save $100,000 or increase our Social Security by $100,000, that's $100,000 that you don't have to take from where? Your investments, right? So we have to maximize what we can maximize. We have to control what we can control. We can control when we take our Social Security. So we have to be able to do what makes sense for us. Not what our neighbor said, not what this person at work said, our coworker, not what my brother or sister said, because that may not be what's right for you. You have to look at what's right for you and your spouse and your family. So we want to maximize this Social Security income. And let's just say that that as a married couple is $4,000 per month. And let's just assume that we don't have a pension. We have a problem, right? We have $7,000 coming in, $4,000 going out, and we have to solve that income gap. So this gap is now $3,000 per month for every single month that we're alive. And that $3,000 has to increase with inflation. So we have to solve this gap by taking money out of our investments to fill this gap, right? Now, what happens at 73 or age 75 for most of you guys probably on this Zoom meeting? We have our required minimum distributions that have to be taken out. So our RMDs are going to come out. We have to solve for that. Now, with our required minimum distributions, do you have control on when you take your RMDs out? Can you control how much you take out? And the answer is yes. Because if you're sitting here today and you're, let's say, 63 years old, and you're not forced to take this out till 75, if you did proper tax planning, Roth conversion, you may not have any RMD that's forced upon you by the time you get to age 75, your RMD age. So you can control this. This is all our choice that we're going to make on when we take this RMD out, or if we're going to have an RMD in the future. Yes, that means you have to do tax planning. Yes, that means you have to pay taxes on these distributions, but that's your choice to do so. So we want to have a plan for this as well. And if we are doing Roth conversion, we probably don't want to be taking Social Security out because that's going to fill part of our income for the year for that tax bracket that we're trying to convert into or be into with our overall income. So this is why having a plan is so important. And if you don't have an income plan or a tax plan, RMDs are forced upon you. RMDs are the IRS or the government's forced tax plan on you to start paying some taxes on that IRA money that you guys have saved and put into. So we want to control not only Social Security, we're going to control our RMDs. Now, eventually, one of us are going to pass away, so we need to have that spousal plan in place. If I pass away, I want to make sure my wife has the same amount of income coming in that I may have had or we have had as a family. Yes, I'm going to eat a little bit less. Yes, we might only have one car instead of two cars if one spouse passes away, but usually our core expenses are going to stay the same, and we still want that remaining spouse to live their best life. So we still want them to spend that type of money. And remember too, just because we might be losing an expense doesn't mean our taxes go down. Because now all of a sudden, instead of filing jointly married, we go down to a single tax bracket, which shrinks the amount of income we could have. So when one spouse passes away, it usually increases the tax bracket that remaining single spouse is going to be living in. So we just have to understand how we're leaving that spouse when we pass away and controlling what we can actually control. All right, so now once we have this income plan done, now we want to focus on our investments themselves. So here we want to actually have an investment plan. And with our investments, we want to make sure that we're rebalancing this throughout the year. Because what happens if we look over the last 4 years, stock market's been up over 20% each year roughly. Last year was, I think the S&P was sitting at about 16.5%. But if we're 50-50 investors and all of a sudden we have some really good years in the market, we're no longer 50-50. Then all of a sudden a down year comes in and the market goes down 20%. Now we're going down 20 on maybe 60 or 70% of our money instead of 20 on 50% of our money. So we're taking more risk, which we have to rebalance that every year. But the main thing we want to do is put purpose to every dollar we have invested. So number one, we want to take the amount of risk that we are willing to take and match that inside our portfolio. So a lot of times when you come in, we're looking at this and you might have too much in growth assets or too much in conservative assets, and we have to get you in alignment. And then we're going to take this money and put it into 3 different categories: a bucket for safe assets, a bucket for income producing assets, and a bucket for long-term growth. We'll talk about this in a minute when we start talking about creating income. Now, after we have purpose to our dollars, hopefully you could see the importance of having an actual income plan. Now we could relax, we could enjoy life, we could do what we want, when we want to do it, how we want to do it, because we have enough income for the rest of our life to do everything that we want to accomplish. Number 2, our investments are in line. And if we have it set up between safety, income, and growth, if the stock market is going haywire, we don't have to worry about it because we have the income coming in. We don't have to take out of the stock market. And when the stock market's doing very well, we could take more out of it if we want to do even more things that we wanted to do in retirement. Now, number 3, what we have to do is save as much money as possible. So what we want to do is be tax efficient. That's also going to allow us to have more income if we're going to be tax efficient. So some of the things that we want to do are going to be things like Roth conversions or Roth contributions if you're still working. We want to look at tax loss harvesting. We want to look at 7702 of the U.S. tax code to be more efficient. We want to look at charitable remainder trusts, so CRTs. We want to look at QOZs. We want to look at QCDs. We want to look at land simple donations. We want to look at trust or estate planning. There's a lot of different vehicles that we could use in order to be tax efficient inside your portfolio. Pay the least amount of taxes as possible, which allows you to have more income, which allows your portfolios to be bigger in the long run, and allows more money to go to your beneficiaries. Whether you're anticipating or wanting to leave them money or not, it's going to allow more money. And if it's not for them, it's more money for you to spend. So it's being smarter with our dollars as much as we possibly can. Now, number 4, we're going to get into plan for actual healthcare. And with having a healthcare plan, what we want to do is have the control on what's going to happen to us if we need to go into a nursing home, assisted living, or stay at home. And then we also want to have the choice, right? Control, choice. I would also even say dignity. We want to have our dignity no matter what. So here we're going to look at things like whether it's Medicare Part A, Part B, maybe an Advantage plan, maybe it's long-term care, maybe it's home health, maybe it's life insurance. There's a lot of different things here. We just have to make sure we have the right healthcare plan for you because, again, maximizing our income through combination of Social Security planning as well as our investment planning is going to allow us to be able to cover some of the things like having long-term care insurance or money set aside in the investments to leverage to help pay for those long-term care expenses or home health care expenses. And then finally, we want to have an actual plan for when we're gone or even while we're alive. And that's really an estate plan or a legacy plan. How do I want to leave this money? What's the right way or the best way to leave the money to my beneficiaries as well as being tax efficient to them? So for all of us, we want to have a will, or I won't say you have to because I'm not an attorney, but you might want to talk to an attorney about getting a will, a trust, powers of attorney, living will, life insurance could be here as well. We could do even some charitable giving here in order to be more efficient inside of our estate and how we're going to leave assets to our beneficiaries, okay? And these all tie in together. So as we start to increase our income, as we increase it, is going to cause us to pay more money in taxes. So as we take Social Security and that extra income comes in on top of the income that we have coming in from a pension, let's say, this is going to cause tax problems. It's also going to increase our Medicare Part B IRMA. So now we're going to be penalized in our IRMA charges. So now we're paying more money here. As the stock market is going down, it's causing us to sell more to get that same amount of income that we need. So our portfolio starts falling even further. But as we take income out or selling our investments, obviously it could cause taxes on our Social Security. It could cause more taxes in general. It can increase Medicare Part B premiums. So these all tie in together. This is why it's so important to have a plan in place for all 5 areas. Hopefully you could see the value of having a proper income plan, a proper investment plan, a proper tax plan, healthcare plan, and estate plan. This is where it's going to give you the confidence to spend more money. It's going to give you the clarity that you're already set up by having all 5 areas covered. You can now do what you want when you want to do it, how you want to do it. And that's where we come into play as not only your advisors, but your leaders. We're here to love you, support you, encourage you, and also challenge you to live your best life in retirement. So now I want to kind of break each one of these down for you guys individually. And when we start talking about having an income plan, what does that really look like? So number one, what we want to do is take into consideration how much money you have saved. So we'll just use as an example, you have $1 million inside your portfolio. So let's break that down to safe assets, income assets, and growth assets. And it's really that simple. I could take thousands of different investments and put them into each one of these buckets. Probably 30,000 investments get you pretty close to the same return, but every single portfolio is going to be different. So it's not necessarily about the investments, it's about the actual plan itself. The plan is more important than the actual investments. So let's just look at safe money. If I were to ask you what assets or investments are safe, these are going to be things like bank products. So start thinking about stuff that is not going to produce a whole lot of growth, but it's going to be safe. It's going to be protected. So we're going to have bank assets. We could throw CDs, money markets here, checking, savings. You could put an annuity here if that annuity is either fixed or fixed indexed. If it's a variable, it will not fit here because it's tied to the stock market. The indexed is tied to the stock market, but the safety mechanism is you will not participate in the downside of the market. You only participate in the upside. So really, your safety check here is going to be that I might have a zero return, but it's still safe. Okay. Now, in this situation, we have to look at maybe it's 6 months worth of expenses, or whatever you feel comfortable having in safe money sitting inside checking, savings, CDs, money markets, or that annuity that you could get to when needed. So let's just say that your expenses are about $6,000 a month. Maybe we need about $36,000 in these safe buckets here. Maybe we'll just round that up and say it's $50,000. So we're going to have $50,000 here. Now we're going to move to the next bucket and we're going to look here at how do we produce income. Now, some of you will have, all of you will have Social Security. Some of you will have a pension. Now, what are other assets that are going to produce income? We have things like bond interest. We have dividend-paying stocks. Some of you are rental property owners. So we have these rental properties. There's real estate investment trusts. We could take money from an annuity. Maybe it's an income-producing annuity. So all of these are vehicles to create income. And I believe you need to have several of these inside your investment plan, because if interest rates are going crazy, interest rates rise, bond prices fall, might not be wanting to take out our income from our bonds at certain times. If the stock market is very volatile, we might not want to be taking income off of our investments or selling while the market is down. So we really want to have several different ways we could create income depending on what's going on in the stock market. But if we set this up properly, let's just say that you need $7,000 every single month, or $10,000 every single month, or $20,000 every single month, whatever that amount is, and we have this set up properly to come in like clockwork every single month, increasing with inflation and outliving that second spouse, there's no need to worry about anything. Because you're able to do what you want, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, and you can live your best life. All of those vacations, the 3 months in Florida, the taking the grandkids on vacation, the $50,000 that's going into my kitchen next year is all factored in here. So what we just did was protect your lifestyle. But how much money do we need in this bucket to do so? This is where we have to figure out, based off of your expenses and the income you are going to have in retirement by maximizing Social Security, taking the remaining investments and creating income. We might need, let's say, $450,000 in this bucket to create or fill that income gap. And again, it's coming in like clockwork, increasing with inflation, outliving a second spouse. So that's going to leave the third or the remaining bucket. And this is going to be for growth or long-term growth. So now we've already have 450 and 50,000 already assigned to our income bucket and our safe bucket. That's going to leave us another $500,000 that's going to go in our growth bucket. And this is going to be where we're going to take the most risk. We don't want to take risk over here because this is for our emergency money. We just want to earn a little bit of income here. Our income bucket, we want that to grow, but it doesn't have to be high growth if it's providing us the income. It's filling a purpose. We have purpose to our dollars. This is what we want to consider. Finally, our growth bucket are things that are going to appreciate the most. So stocks, ETFs. You could say a mutual fund. I am not a fan, and our firm are not fans of mutual funds because of the high fees inside there. And we could talk about that at a later date. Could be structured notes or buffered notes. It could be private equity. Whatever you want to invest in, that's going to get you the best return. And even if the market's volatile over here and it's fallen, we don't need to worry about that. Why? Because we have this $7,000 coming in like clockwork. So we have time on our side. We could ride this back up because we don't really need it. And when the markets catch back up, now we could start using those assets for things like maybe a new car for my wife. Maybe instead of 2 vacations this year, this is going to be for the 3rd vacation. This is money that you may not ever need or touch for the rest of your life. If we are spending more because we're enjoying life to the fullest, that'll make us happy because you're enjoying life to the fullest. But maybe we could replenish some of these other buckets. So when we start talking about maximizing Social Security, that's part of it. Now it's taking our investments and actually creating a plan. And really it is as simple as this: having money in safety, income producing, and long-term growth assets. So now we actually have a plan for our investments. Now what we want to do is move into our next one, which is really creating that tax plan, okay? In that tax plan, we want to look at, we call our tax triangle. And we're going to have money inside our tax plan that we like to say is eventually going to be taxed. And what is eventually going to be taxed mean to you guys? And that's going to be things like your IRAs, your 401ks, TSPs for federal workers, 403Bs. So any type of our retirement accounts that have not been taxed, but will be taxed when? When you start to pull money out during retirement, right? Or when you're forced to at your required minimum distribution age. So that's when we're forced to take these funds out. Then we're going to be taxed, and that's at 73 or 75 for you guys on the meeting today. Now, we have our eventually taxed, and then we have our always taxed. And our always taxed money are going to be things like our 1099 interest. That's going to be things like our brokerage accounts. These we're going to always pay taxes on the distributions. And some of us don't even think about this, but let's say we have a CD and it's earning 5%. When do we pay taxes on that growth of that CD? We pay it through a 1099, right? At the end of that 6 months, year, 3-year CD, but it becomes taxable. So what we want to do is take those funds and move them into something that is going to never be taxed again. And for our IRAs and our 401ks, we want to do that inside what you guys probably already have inside some of your retirement accounts or have created, and that's going to be your Roth accounts, okay? And we do that through something called 408A, which is really the code for the Roth IRA. So what we want to do is take our funds and convert over to that Roth. But if we're going to convert, that means we're going to pay taxes. So we want to do it through something we call doing it incrementally over a period of time. For some, that might be we're doing a Roth conversion of $50,000 this year. For someone else, it might be $100,000. We have to look at your tax brackets. We have to look at the income that you have coming in and figure out what's the right amount of time based off of your life expectancy, based off of what you're trying to do and accomplish during retirement. How much should we convert and what makes sense? A lot of times people are talking about don't do any Roth conversion because we don't know what the future looks like. Well, you would assume having the highest national deficit that we've ever had, national debt, that taxes are probably going to increase in the future. We're increasing our national debt every 5 months by $1 trillion. More than likely, considering we're in some of the lowest tax rates in the history of our country, taxes will increase in the future. So what we want to do is start converting these assets over. Well, but what can you do with this always tax money, this brokerage account or this 1099 interest that we have? Instead of converting that, what we want to do is contribute that over to something called 7702. So what we're going to do is, on this side, instead of convert, we're going to contribute. And now, instead of having 1099 interest, when we have increase in our investment, now we get to take this interest out completely tax-free. So we're all trying to create tax-free income, whether it's through 408A or 7702 of the US tax code. Now, what happens with these RMDs? These RMDs are forced. We can't take these RMDs and roll them into a Roth. But what we can do is take that RMD, pay taxes on it, put it into 7702, and never pay tax again on the interest it earns. So it's almost like creating another Roth account if it's done the right way. So this is where we're trying to get our IRA dollars or our non-qualified or brokerage account dollars and still move them in something that is never going to be taxed again. This not only benefits you guys, gives you more tax-free income, leaves tax-free money to your beneficiaries, and then lowers our overall taxes in retirement in future years by having an actual tax plan today. So how should you accomplish this? How do you know how much you should be rolling over into or converting to a Roth? Well, that depends on your situation. That's why it's so important to make sure that you're sitting down with us and creating an actual tax plan that you guys can follow and see what makes sense. It doesn't always make sense to do a full Roth conversion because we have standard deduction, we have different things that you could take advantage of. So you don't necessarily have to convert all of your qualified or IRA dollars to a Roth account. Hopefully that makes sense. So creating income, but also maximizing Social Security here. And when we start talking about income, because a lot of people have a hard time figuring out where we should be creating income from. And we talked about safety, income, and growth a second ago. But think about it this way. You have your IRAs, you have your Roth accounts, you have your brokerage accounts, you have your CDs, you have your money markets, we have our stocks, We have our bonds. We have our ETFs. And what we want to do is feed the machine, right? We want to take all of these and combine them or move them through this pipe, let's say, or this process that's going to spit out a monthly paycheck. That's all we want to do. It's really as simple as that. You just have to know what investments to put into this pipeline to create this income that's going to be tax efficient to you guys throughout your retirement. So having an income plan and knowing between safety, income, and growth assets, how they should be fed through this process to produce the income that you guys are going to need. That's where sitting down with us, you're going to be able to find out what's the best way for you and not necessarily your sister, your brother, your neighbor, or whoever it might be. All right, one of the things I forgot to mention was really creating an actual healthcare plan. Because what we have to do is protect from the storms that are going to happen throughout our retirement. And we're going to have different storms that we're going to have to deal with, like prescription costs. We're going to have long-term care costs, whether it's home health care costs. We're going to have Medicare costs. We're going to have unexpected. Whoa, let me do that one again. Different unexpected costs that we're going to have to deal with throughout retirement. So our portfolios are just raining down money that could have went towards our families. And what we want to do is protect our family, protect ourselves from rising prescription costs, healthcare costs, Medicare costs, long-term care costs. And we do that by having that healthcare plan built out the right way so that we have a plan for Medicare A and B. We have a plan for long-term care. We have a plan for supplemental insurance. We have an actual plan to protect our savings. So a lot of time, the reason why I do these drawings is hopefully to help you realize that there's a lot more that goes into it than just having Medicare Part A and B and saying, I have a healthcare plan. No, we have to make sure that when prescriptions go up, or if I go into a long-term care facility, or if I want to stay at home and still have a nurse come out and take care of me, unexpected events. Tim, I'm healthy now, but what about 10 years from now? Are you still going to be healthy? We don't know. What if you slip and fall? What if you hit your head and you no longer can make decisions on your own? Things happen all the time. So we want to prepare for these storms, and we want to do that by having an actual plan in place that makes sense. Now, healthcare planning, it's not about predicting the storm. I love this quote, but it's about making sure the storm doesn't financially destroy the retirement you wanted to live your whole life for. So it's just about protecting ourselves and having an actual plan for all 5 areas. Here's the one I forgot to talk about, and that's that healthcare plan. This is where maximizing our income from Social Security and our retirement assets are going to help prepare for this as well, along with meeting with us and having the plan for it too. All right, finally, I want to leave you here with estate planning, because this is very big. And I like to be bold. Our team likes to be bold. I don't want to tell you what you want to hear. I want to tell you what you need to know. And this is where I think we're very selfish if we don't have an estate plan. Going back to either when my wife was through her last few weeks of life, and we had to make that decision of whether she was going to be on life support or in hospice, we didn't have to make that decision because my wife had her legal documents done prior to that. My dad on the other side, and this is where I will say, if you guys are sitting in this situation, I think you're very selfish if you don't have an estate plan. My dad, I love him. However, before he passed, me and my son were hiking out in Idaho, and I get a call from my stepmom, And my stepmom tells me that my dad had a heart attack and that the doctor's asking her whether to put him in hospice or on life support. And of course I said, Connie, you make that decision, you're there. And she said, Tim, I can't live with making that decision. And I said, ask my 3 sisters who are in Cleveland with you right now. She said, I did, and they don't want to make that decision. So then I had to drive 25 hours back. I don't want to make it seem like that was a bad thing because of course I'm going to go back or be with my dad. But the problem is because my dad failed to make a decision on his own, he's leaving it up to me. You're leaving it up to your spouse. You're leaving it up to your kids. Is your spouse going to be able to make that decision? Do you want your spouse to make that decision? Do you want your kids to make that decision? They're dealing with the loss of their mom or their dad or their husband or their wife. Are you really want to leave that to that person, another burden upon them? Make that decision yourself by having that proper estate plan, that will, that trust, that powers of attorney. Meet with an attorney, meet with our team, and we'll walk you through that process. But it's not just about having our legal documents. What we want to do is we have things like our will. We have our deed to our house. We have our farm. We have our cars. We have our jewelry. We have our investments. We have our tangible assets. Whatever we have, we want to take these assets and we just want to protect them. We want to protect them from lawsuits. We want to keep them private. Most of us do at least, right? So what we want to do is have really a safe. I am not the best drawer, so this is, we're going to pretend is our safe. And all we want to do is take these assets and start putting them in here. So we're going to put our deed in here. We're either going to title it to the name of the trust, or we're going to put it in something called a ladybird deed. We're going to take our farm. We're going to put our farm in our trust. We're going to take our cars, our vehicles. We're going to put them into the trust. We're going to take our investments and we're going to put the investments that need to go into the trust inside the trust. Now we've just protected those. And if they were done the right way, we're going to keep everything private and we're going to protect it from creditors potentially if done the right way. So it's more than just legal documents. Now we have to take the assets and protect them. And that way you're going to not only protect yourself, keep it private, protect it from creditors, protect your family in the long run. So we start talking about maximizing Social Security. We start talking about creating income out of our investments. It's not just as easy as saying, this is the right investment for you. This is the wrong investment for this person, or it's as simple as just doing this is going to get you the best income. We have to take into consideration inflation. We have to take into consideration taxes, volatility in the stock market. There's a lot of things that we have to tie in together and figure out what's the right plan for you. But this plan has to be nimble enough to change if something happens. But we also have to be in a plan that's set up to adapt to change. And that no matter what happens with the stock market, we're protected because we have safety, income, and growth. We've taken advantage of maximizing our Social Security, so we're getting the most out of it and not having to take as much out of our investments. And when we tie everything in together, we have purpose to our money, we have the income that we're never going to outlive, and we've protected our assets for our family. So I hope this makes sense to you guys. If you have any questions, of course, we would love to talk with you. Someone from our team will be glad to have a phone call with you, sit down with you in person. If you're one of our client family members, obviously come in, we'll review things, making sure that you're on track. If we need to take more income out, we want to do more fun or live your best life things through retirement. Let's come in, let's make sure those things happen. And if you haven't taken into consideration any of the things that we talked about. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, do you want to be doing this for the rest of your life? If so, that's no problem. But are you keeping up with tax law? Are you wanting to watch the stock market when you're sipping on a cocktail in Tahiti and trying to enjoy life, and all of a sudden something happens? Are you going to run back inside, grab your laptop, and start making some trades? Don't do that. Sit back and enjoy life. You worked so hard to get to where you are today. Now it's about enjoying life to the fullest. This is where a firm like ours comes in and makes sure that you're protected. Gives you the peace of mind. Uncovers the opportunities you never thought were possible, but not only uncovers them, helps you take advantage of them. And serves you as a leader who's here to love you, support you, encourage you, but also challenge you. And we do that through our process, which is trademarked, and that's our strategic wealth method. But the number one thing that we believe in is helping you live your best life, which is also trademarked, #LYBL. And that's because we're such big believers in getting to know you on a personal level. None of this can be accomplished just in one sitting. And we can't even give you advice if we don't get to know you on a personal level. And that's why we call our strategic wealth family. I want to get to know you on a personal level, get to know you, your family, get to know what your wants are, your desires, your dislikes are, and how can we build a plan to help you accomplish everything that you want to do in retirement. We only get one shot at life. Life is way too short not to enjoy it. So once you do get to retirement, man, it's time to start spending your money. But you have to have the confidence and clarity that you can spend your money. And that's what we're going to give you, is the confidence and clarity to spend your money, do what you want, when you want to do it, and how you want to do it. So it was fun talking with you guys today. If you guys have questions on this, give us a call. We'll be glad to meet with you personally. Go back over, make sure you're on the right track, or show you how to get back on track, save for retirement, or retire earlier than you possibly thought. And appreciate you guys listening in today. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If this episode sparked something in you or made you realize it's time to stop guessing and start planning, we'd love to meet with you. No matter where you are, no matter when you start, you deserve to live your best life. We'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your friends and your family. Remember, living your best life isn't a destination, it's a decision. And it's a decision that you get to choose. Until next time, stay well, stay informed, and keep living boldly.
Investment advisory services offered through Strategic Wealth Advisors Group, Incorporated, a Securities and Exchange Commission registered investment advisor. Content contained herein is for informational purpose only and is not intended and should not be construed as personalized investment advice or an offer for the purchase or sale of any security, insurance, or other investment product. Investments involve the risk of loss, including possible loss of principal. Please consult with a qualified financial, tax, accounting, or legal professional before implementing any ideas or strategies discussed here. Content provided may be obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but cannot be guaranteed as to